All right, Mr. John Green, appreciate you sitting down and taking some time to talk with me about restaurants and all things odds. I really appreciate your time, my man. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Greg.
Absolutely, yeah. So we normally get these things started by, because most people don't know about the guests that I have. Probably more people know about you a little bit. You've been pretty extensive in the restaurant industry, but we get a little background on you. And as far as I could tell, when I looked up on you, you got your business degree in general management. And then you went back to London and started working as a waiter bartender. You got your degree here, right, in the U.S.?
Yeah, I got my degree. I went to Fresno State in California.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. So you were born in London?
Yes, I was born and bred in London, and then I got kind of a bit of a scholarship thing in the States. So I went to university there, and
Yeah, that's the way to do it, man. I mean, that's quite a long ways to go for college, though. Was where you just wanted to explore the U.S. a little more, get out of Britain?
Yeah, I always liked the States growing up, like the concepts of the States. It was always kind of special to me, and I traveled there once before. So when the opportunity came to go to school there for a while, it just seemed like a bit of a no-brainer for me. I did high school for 1 year and then just my senior year. Okay. So I got to sort of see that. It's very different, high school in America, to what school's like in England. So I got to see that, which was really interesting, and then went ahead and did my degree.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. And then you went back to Britain, I assume, because your visa...
Actually, it's kind of funny. Like the day you graduate, about 2 days later, you get a letter from immigration saying, congratulations, you've got 2 weeks to get out of the country.
Wow.
So I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty...
I guess I'm going back home.
yeah, no, that's pretty aggressive. Yeah, my partner's from the UK, and we're doing the whole immigration visa thing right now. It's such a headache. So,
yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I don't blame you for just getting right back over there. But it sounds like when you went back over there, you really started working in the restaurant industry, starting pretty much on the ground level. What was your first experience like?
Actually, I got lucky. I kind of would say that I didn't really go in at the ground level in some ways. I started out as a server, but I was a server in a very, very famous restaurant where it was kind of a movie star hangout. Well, not kind of, it was a movie star hangout. And it was really well known for that. And we made relatively lots of money. So my first job was as a waiter in this place. And I was doing very well at that, relatively speaking, obviously. And so that was like a great launch. Then I became a maitre d' there. So I started getting to know all the stars and sort of, taking care of them when they came in and all that sort of stuff. And then I actually dabbled in the theatre for a while. I was in a show in the West End starring Emma Thompson for 1 year called Me and My Girl. I had the smallest part in the West End, but I was in the show, so it was cool. And it was just like an interesting experience. It just seemed like I'd already gone through university, and the thought of going through drama school and doing all of that again kind of turned me off a bit. So I just stuck with the restaurants and then didn't look back. Yeah,
well, I mean, you've made quite a career out of it. And don't sweat the small parts either, man. They're all important in all of those plays and everything. So as long as you can put it on the resume, I think it's all right. But I don't blame you for not wanting to go back into the arts and everything. But, people from the outside... looking from the outside might say that, picking between the arts or the restaurant industry, both are pretty volatile at times. So what really helped keep you in the restaurant industry? Like, what fuels your passion for it?
I think I'm not sure if it was passion that kept me in it. I think it was more a combination of necessity. I had to work. I don't come from a rich background, so it wasn't, I had to actually work. And it was something I knew how to do, and it kind of a lot of my career kind of fell into place. I got this job in that restaurant, and that kind of took me down a certain path. And then I became a bartender. I got very good at bartending, and got quite well known for it. And started doing. It was back in the Flair days when we used to juggle the bottles and all that stuff. And so myself and my best friend who became my partner, we just got very well known for it. So we started doing tours. We were invited on TV shows.
Awesome.
Did a lot of that. Did even radio, which I thought was kind of funny. And sort of on the backbone of that sort of, I wouldn't call it celebrity, but I guess mixology celebrity. We launched a company called Bar Biz, and it took off. We focused on delivering really good teams of people, and we did really well at it. We trained some of the best bartenders in the world at the time, and we got known for it. And without advertising, without cold calling anybody, the phone started ringing, and we got hired to do jobs all over the place. We started out, the company was called Bar Biz. We started doing bar consultancy, designing, setting up bars and operations, training bartenders, and then we got asked to do restaurants, so we did that, and then we got asked to do really fancy restaurants, so we did that. And before we knew it, we were consulting all around the world, hotel chains, big chains, individual, small single ownership places, and all of a sudden the country started ticking away. We opened places in France and Australia, toured Greece, all over Britain. It just kind of kept going.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. It's awesome to hear that it has such a nice origin story, and like a really down to earth origin story where you and basically your buddy were just good at what you did, and then you just kind of ran from there. That's really cool, man. So how did that morph into more opening actual restaurants rather than just doing the bar biz?
Well, we just as I said, we got known for the one component, and so people got interested in others, and then a natural progression is you start thinking, well, hang on a minute, I'm opening these restaurants for other people. I want to do my own.
Sure.
And so the opportunity came my way. I'd owned one smaller place in London before, but an opportunity came in Hong Kong. This is when the British still controlled Hong Kong before it got handed back to the Chinese. So the nice thing about it was I could just fly into Hong Kong and work there. There was no work permit thing like we were just discussing. So that was kind of cool. And somebody basically said, look, John, yeah, I've heard all about you. Are you interested in opening a place with me in Hong Kong? So his job was to go and get some investors and kind of do all the paperwork. And my job was to come and design and set it and build it and operate it. And so we did that. And it was a very successful place called the China Jump. And that sort of, then you start owning restaurants. So you think, this is kind of cool. So let's keep doing some more of those. So.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. How many restaurants have you opened successfully thus far?
Oh God, I get asked that question a lot. I honestly don't know. I mean, as a consultant, I did, I don't know, it had to have been 50 or 60.
Wow, really?
And in terms of ownership, I've had, I've either owned rep pieces of probably about a dozen places.
Really? Oh wow, that's pretty extensive, man. That's crazy. That's good to hear, though. Congrats on all that. That's really a lot of success there. What restaurant opening has posed you the most challenges, and why?
Odds. I'm just kidding.
Odds.
No, they all have their separate challenges. I mean, as I said, my career has been very international. So going to these countries, Hong Kong wasn't too bad because it was all based on the British system pretty much. But then I went to Malaysia and I opened in Kuala Lumpur. So there's different challenges there. I mean, first of all, you've got language challenge because I couldn't speak the language. So you have to navigate your way through work permits, through business permits, building permits, licenses, so and then negotiating with the contractors, communicating with the contractors and the builders. Because I designed and project managed a lot of these openings. So I would say that's probably the biggest challenge is just learning how to navigate your way through the bureaucracy of each nation, and they all have their own challenges in their own way. There's no one place that's it's so easy to do it here. There's always regulations. Same in the States, same in Canada, same in Asia, same in the UK. There's all lots of regulations and hoops you've got to jump through to get these things open.
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone looks at a restaurant and says, yeah, this was easy to open at any point.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, a lot of people think restaurant business is easy. You see a lot of people getting into the bar, restaurant business, because everyone kind of wants to own a piece of a bar. I want my own bar. And I go drinking bars all the time. This looks easy. And they don't realize there's a lot of moving parts in the restaurant, and there's a lot of liquid parts in the restaurant, which is hard to control. I mean, people forget about that. If you're, I don't know, if you're selling furniture, you got 10 chairs in your shop and you're going to sell 10 chairs, you know what's going on. Try and control just gallons of liquid sitting on shelves, being controlled by effectively, young, I don't want to say kids, but young people who are still kind of learning their way in life and figuring out what they want to do. So getting and food control, like not throwing too much food away, not over portioning, not making sure they're not, overcooking everything, and which goes on every single time. Every time you open a restaurant, you have all of these challenges, and they repeat themselves. And it doesn't matter how experienced you are, they keep coming your way.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a rough industry to be a part of, and anybody that says otherwise is obviously never worked in it extensively because, I mean, I've worked in a few restaurants. I did a little bit of management here and there, and I knew by that time it was not something that I wanted to tackle just because it's such a volatile industry, and you can have things like COVID, for instance, happen where, you know, it just completely affects the entire industry worldwide. So
yeah, that was awful. I mean, it put so many restaurants out of business. So many people struggled in this industry because obviously no one could go to a restaurant anymore. So that was a bad time. I was actually, in a weird way, I was kind of lucky in a way. I was I did a big development in Vancouver, a huge development, 140,000 square foot, 18-story high rise.
Massive.
But part of it was a banquet facility and a small bistro, and I was responsible for operating that banquet facility. And COVID kind of created some delays in construction, but we weren't ready to open until after COVID. So I kind of got lucky there. But I've heard stories of people that literally just opened just before COVID.
Oof, yeah.
And they're out of business before they got going. So it was a bad time on so many levels.
Yeah, no, it was rough all around the world. It was really rough. You know, you saw restaurants coming open and closing overnight. You know, vacancies all over town. You know, complete different areas of Austin, of Dallas, of the places that I mostly poked around. It was completely new, you know, before and after COVID because of all the different restaurants and businesses that closed. So it was definitely rough industry to be in. But aside from COVID and, you know, in the normal day to day, in your opinion, what factors beyond just like food quality really can make or break a restaurant when you open it?
Ultimately, I know it's the people. You've got to put together a team, and that's, again, all of these things sound so much easier than they are. You've got to put together a good team of people that are committed to delivering a good product and providing good service, getting to know the customer, reading the customer. And the most important thing in this industry, in my opinion, is actually reading the customer. I mean, I used to talk to people when I was a consultant. They say, "What makes you guys so good?" And it'd be like, "Well, our team, our people, the way we put things together." And don't get me wrong, it's not easy. It's not something you just deliver like it's nothing. You have to work at it. It takes time. But making sure your focal point is creating a team of people that are really going to connect with your guests, you know, so that you build that customer base. And then obviously you want to give them you got to give them a good product and value for money. But it all comes down to building a team and the people. Yeah.
No, I mean, providing the right service really starts with having the right people in place to do it.
Yeah.
It seems like. So that makes a lot of sense that's probably the single most important thing of whether or not a restaurant succeeds or fails. So it's good to get that insight.
It's getting tougher to deliver too.
Yeah.
Because the society's changed a lot. Since I started out in this career, I always threaten to write a book, and I'm going to call it "When Did Service Become a Dirty Word?" Because to me, I remember when you talked about my Fresno State days. I mean, we're talking quite a few moons ago now, but I remember being in the States, and the service just blew me away. How much better it was than in the UK and in Europe. And then over the years, I've seen a change. It got way better in the UK and not so good in the States. And then the UK as well has dropped off, and it's almost become literally a dirty word. It's like people. It's almost looked down upon. It's like, well, I shouldn't have to serve. And it's like, well, yeah, but that's the job. And if you're not willing to try to provide good service in this industry that is largely a service-driven industry, then, you know, perhaps you shouldn't be in it. But obviously it's a stepping stone for a lot of people. I mean, you meet very few people that didn't do some stint in the restaurant business at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned, I've done every job in a kitchen. I've done wait staff as well. It's a easy job to get into because you often don't have to have a lot of prior experience or education or anything like that. You just need to be able to provide good service, put a smile on your face, take care of the people in front of you. So it's really approachable for a lot of people. What do you think has really driven this downturn in terms of how people look at the service industry?
It's hard to put your finger on it. I mean, culture changes. I think you can blame almost everything on social media these days, not because it's a bad thing, but just it's changed things. When I grew up, we used to, have to remember people's phone numbers and dial them up and call them to speak to somebody. But nowadays everything's on your fingertips. You don't have to leave your bedroom. A lot of communication isn't done in person anymore. So just the whole kind of concept of human interaction has changed to some degree because of social media. In some ways good, in some ways not so good, in my opinion. And I think that is probably the root of what's changing not just what's in my industry, but just life in general.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the way that we are communicating as people is evolving, and it's becoming a little less personal.
Yeah.
And so therefore, there's less emphasis being put on that personal interaction, and maybe even less people are capable of doing it or appreciating it.
Well, plus, like 20 years ago, I'd be on TV right now, whereas now I'm doing a podcast.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So
yeah, it all evolves over time. And speaking of TV, though, you hosted a show on Food Network at one point, right?
yeah, that was a lot of fun. I think that was like 10, 11, 12 years ago.
Oh, really?
I think about a decade ago now.
Okay.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I just decided one day. I always kind of liked the entertainment world, and I've watched a lot of shows on TV, and I'm thinking I could do that. I'm going to give it a go. And I remember I said, I'm just going to go down to LA. I didn't know anybody in the business. I got very lucky. And everybody, including my wife, was saying, "Don't be nuts! You're wasting your time." There was one close friend of mine. He said, "No, you're made for this. You should do it." And I went down to LA, and I got kind of lucky. I think luck plays a big part in lives in general. You don't know which door's coming your way, and you don't know which door you're going to open. And I just went to some movie awards that I got invited to from a friend who had invested in a movie. And I went to this thing, and I met quite a few celebs there, which was cool. And this lady sat down next to me. She goes, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I'm a restaurant guy, but I'm trying to do a TV show." And she's like, "I don't know anything about TV. I'm a movie producer, but I do know one thing in this town, LA, of course. You need good representation. So if you want, I'll introduce you to this lawyer." And I didn't know who he was at the time. I said, "Yeah, great. I'll meet anybody." And she introduced me to this guy. His name was Ernie Dell, very, very famous Hollywood lawyer, huge company. My wife researched him, and she called me back. She said, "Holy shit, this guy's the real McCoy." And he was living in London at the time. And he goes, "Hey, John, do you want to meet me? Come to London." Well, for me, going to London is very easy because it's my family. So yeah, an excuse to go see the family.
Sure.
So I flew over to London to meet him. We hit it off. We drank quite a few margaritas in a private club in London and just hit it off. And I told him all my bar stories, which I've got copious amounts of.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
And he just said, "No, you're great, John. And do you want some of my lawyers to start getting you meetings with production companies in LA?" I said, "That would be great." So the next day, all of a sudden, I've got all these lawyers, like a fleet of lawyers, calling me up because Ernie, was the big guy. Ernie said that you need to meet some people, and they were all just bending over backwards to get me meetings with all of these producers. Wow. And I met a bunch and told them my stories. And one of them happened to talk to the Food Network, and the Food Network happened to say, "Oh, we're thinking about doing a bar show. Oh, I've got the guy for you. Okay, do a casting tape." Did the casting tape, and it went so fast that I couldn't believe how fast I ended up getting signed up for a series on the Food Network.
No, that's wild. And that show was called On the Rocks, yeah?
Yeah, On the Rocks. Only one season, unfortunately. One season out, but
hey, okay.
It was amazing. It was such a good time. We filmed all around America, so that was cool. Our first one was in Detroit, and yeah, even did a couple in Texas actually.
Okay,
a couple of episodes in Texas. But it was probably one of the most fun things I've ever done.
Yeah, no, I mean
definitely the most fun business thing I've ever done.
For sure, man. That sounds awesome. I mean, getting a TV show is a big thing. You also kind of get to combine maybe your theater past and your entertainment past with something you were already delving into prolifically with the bar biz and everything like that. So it sounds like a really cool meeting of all of your interests as well.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
No, that's cool, man. Well, that sounds like a pretty extensive career. How in the world did this career bring you to a poker club in Round Rock, Texas?
Yeah, good question. So I've been playing poker for a long time. I'm an avid recreational poker player.
Okay.
I'm not very good. You might have seen me on the stream, so I'm not very good. But I went to the World Series every year.
Okay.
And I got to know some people there who became a part of the lodge. So they became friends. Jake and Doug, and got to know them down there. So when the process of opening up a restaurant up here came about, they said, "Oh, I know a guy. Let's talk to him." So to begin with, I just came up here just to sort of help him out, just give him some advice. Looked at the lodge operation and kind of tidied a few things up in there that at the time some consultants weren't doing, even though they were there supposedly doing it. And then one thing led to another, and before you knew it, there's like, do you want to have an all-in moment and move to Austin?
Yeah.
So I thought about it and said, yeah, let's do it.
I love that. I love the pitch and all in moment. I'm imagining that came from Doug, but I don't know.
No, it was actually Jake who said that.
Oh, was it Jake? Okay, all right, yeah. That makes sense. Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, you've been here for what, about a year now?
Yeah, just over a year. Yeah.
Okay, and in that time, how long did the full opening of Odds take from like start
Well,
to finish?
it took that much time. Before I moved down here, I was based in Vancouver in Canada, and I designed Odds actually. I'd come down, so I'd seen the space, but I conceptualized and designed it whilst I was still in Canada. At least, actually very much the design. I mean, I did a few changes, but pretty much conceptualized the whole thing. It was going to be called the Stadium back in those days.
Okay.
I didn't really love that name, and it kept bugging me, so I just kept thinking about it. And I know one day I was just sitting in my office, and Odds popped into my head, and I thought, Odds, that sounds cool. It wasn't really to do sort of a thing about poker, although there obviously is that crossover. Of
course.
You've got odds in any kind of gambling, but it was more like I just liked the name. It was an easy name to remember, and then I started thinking, it's odd, it's whimsical. You can play with it in the design. You can play with it a little on the menu. You can play with it in your decor, your interior decor in the place, and it just kind of made sense. So that's how Odds came about, and it's just stuck. And I'm really happy with it, actually. I think it looks really cool. Operationally, as I said, sometimes a challenge, and I am facing some challenges with, hit the ground running as fast as we could, but we've still got work to do.
Yeah.
Design-wise, I love it. I think it's really cool. Obviously, the design is how long's a piece of string when it comes to budget. So I think we had a decent budget. But I think I delivered a pretty cool place for what we had. So
yeah, man,
I'm proud of it.
Yeah, you should be. That place it's beautiful on the inside. First of all, I love it. I think it brings a lot of upscale kind of pizzazz to a card room, even though, I mean, they're not directly connected necessarily, even though it is serving the card room. But I really like the interior. Like, how did you decide on the design? Because you wouldn't necessarily think like Odds, because it's like very like jungle. And, there's a lot of monkeys around everywhere and stuff like that. And so I'm kind of wondering how that ended up happening.
Everyone wants to know about the monkeys. So basically, there's steps in design. So first of all, you look at where you are. And the first thing I do is I go to every single, every competition there is. Like went to all the restaurants in Round Rock, just checking out what's going on, especially it's kind of sports-leaning ones. And so you start seeing a picture of what's there, and then you think, okay, what can I do to make things a bit cooler than that? Then you look at the interior of the space. So with this space, it was quite industrial looking with all of the beams and the ceiling. And because the ceiling wasn't monstrously high, I kind of decided to not close the entire ceiling in. So I've closed parts in, but not all of it. And so that led me down the path of, well, that's kind of to me in my mind, it was kind of a lofty vibe. And so I started picturing this sort of New York loft kind of a vibe thing and went with that. So then that drew me to the darker tone woods, to the mosaic tile, the flooring, that side of it. And then I was at a supply company looking for tiles, actually, looking for samples. I was just putting together my palette for the design. And I met some designer. They offered this service where they gave free design. And normally I look at these people and think, wasting my time to go and talk to these people. They don't know what they're talking about. But for some reason, I just thought, let's talk to this guy. And I got talking with him, and I described it. He was a really nice guy. And he actually said to me, he said, it sounds really, really cool. And I said, I want it to be whimsical when I use that word. And he goes, have you seen this monkey wallpaper? It's really cool. And that's how I kind of discovered it. And so I found it online, got a couple of samples in, and looked at it, and I thought, yeah, that's actually really cool. And then started showing it to people, and everyone's like, that's really cool. And everyone loved it. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm going to inject that into the design because it's kind of, whimsical, whatever. Maybe use that word too much, but you know what I mean. And then when we developed the logo, we had a company who did a really great job, I think, of developing our logo. But I showed them my palette board, and part of that board was that piece, that sample of wallpaper. So they saw the monkey, they loved the monkey. And then all of a sudden, it just took a life of its own, and it became our logo, and it's there. And then I thought, I found these lamps online. I thought, okay, let's buy those. They'll look cool hanging in front of the wallpaper. And it just kind of went from there.
That's cool, man. I mean, I will say, going in there, like, it works. It all looks really, really good and intentional. But it's kind of funny to hear how that came out of just some guy saying, like, I got this wallpaper. Take a look at it, and then the whole theme developed around that. But you wouldn't necessarily expect it when you walk in, but it's really, really nice and cozy. And it just seems to bring a bit of upscale to the restaurant, and I like it quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
Well, the whole plan was always elevated casual dining. People kept saying, "What is it?" And that's pretty much the term I've been using all the way along. It is casual dining. We are showing sports, but I want it to be a place where you don't have to watch sports. You could come in on I don't know, I'm trying to pick a night where there's no football going on, but come in on a Wednesday night when there's nothing really going on, you can sit there and really enjoy the space without having to be there watching a game.
Yeah.
Or if the game's on, come and watch it.
Sure.
Like when we did our grand opening last week, unfortunately the Texans were playing well, they didn't win, unfortunately. I wanted them to win as much as anyone, even though I'm not from here, but you know, I'm living here now. But I had the game on during the opening, the opening party.
Yeah.
So
no, that's cool, man. I like the idea of elevated casual dining because, it gives an upscale feel to a lot of the foods that you already know and love. Like very approachable menu, very almost standard for like what Americans expect, but it's a much more elevated version of that. And I really like that quite a lot. Can you provide an overview of the menu and the inspiration behind all of the dishes that on the menu?
Yeah, I mean, there's some funny ones. I was just talking about, Jake and Doug, and then I met Jason, obviously. And one of the first things they said to me, you have to have fish and chips on the menu because you're English. And I'm like, oh, for God's sakes. That's like, first of all, I don't really eat fish and chips that often, even though I am English. And I didn't really want to do it. But then, I started putting the menu together and realized pretty quickly because we're servicing the lodge, we're providing menu for the lodge, the menu became a lot bigger than I really originally wanted it to be. And that's because if you're servicing a card room, poker players are going to get kind of boring, bored of the menu, I should say. They're not going to get bored.
Yeah,
the menu's going to get boring. If they're eating every day, so you need quite a mix of items. So all of a sudden, it kind of led the way to it becoming what I call like a sort of an international menu, because we've got things like fish and chips, we've got a couple of Asian dishes, we've got some pasta, we've got some burgers and steaks. So it is a bit of an eclectic menu, which you do find quite often in American restaurants over the years. And so I just went with it and sort of just played around with it. And the goal is to make each dish, like you say, we're selling a burger, but I want the burger to look good. And like when you eat it, think, wow, that's a really good burger. And when it's presented, it's not just a burger and on a pile of chips on a plate or a pile of French fries on a plate. So, the goal is to make everything just look that much better. And it's something we're going to constantly reach for and constantly try to improve and just keep working at.
Yeah, absolutely. And does that elevation, you think, set Odds apart from a lot of the restaurants in the area?
Yeah, I mean, we're really happy to be in this area. I mean, when I first came here, I didn't really know it, but now I know Austin quite well. I mean, Austin downtown proper, it's got arguably too many restaurants down there, arguably too much going on for the population. But then you look at the outer areas, like Round Rock, Georgetown, I thought was really cool. You look at some of these areas, Buda, if you go south, there's some really cool upcoming areas that are sort of expanding and getting built on. So Round Rock to me is the ideal place. I think we are quite unique for Round Rock, actually. I think there's quite a few casual places. There's not that many high-end places. Not that we're high-end, but I think there's definitely room for some new places for this community, and I think we're going to provide definitely something that's slightly different for the marketplace.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear, because I mean, a lot of people would say there's a few good restaurants around here, but a lot of people would say that Round Rock is kind of a food desert, at least by comparison to Austin, anyway. Like as you said, most of the big restaurants are all downtown, but it's nice to know that you guys are bringing something that could potentially raise like calm the food desert a little bit here in Round Rock and give people a really nice place to go that isn't 45 minutes away.
Maybe I should have called it the Oasis.
The Oasis. Oh, there you go. See, there you go. That would have been good. That's nice. That's nice. Well, so you described the menu a little bit in restaurant. How do the menus differ in the poker room service versus the actual main restaurant? Because I understand they are different.
Yeah, they're slightly different. There are obviously some crossovers. It's actually very tricky. It's probably the biggest challenge that I'm faced in this particular operation, because you're trying to deliver. It's like having one kitchen, and it's servicing two completely separate places, even though there's crossovers on you can get a hamburger at both places and it's the same burger. But you're trying to create a menu that's slightly different. Price points are different, for example. Items are different because obviously there are certain foods you don't want people, I mean, although we do serve chicken wings, but I'm doing salt and pepper wings that you can dip into a sauce, but I'm not swamping the wings in like a hot sauce or something, because obviously you're playing poker, you're touching cards, you're touching food. So there's all these considerations. So that's kind of been it's been quite a challenge for the kitchen because A, there's a lot of items for the reason I said earlier on. B, we're doing two completely separate menus. And now that the restaurant's open as well as the card room menu, the kitchen's getting busy.
Yeah.
I mean, Saturday night, we were packed on Saturday night and kitchen stood up, but it was, I'd be lying if I didn't say it was a struggle.
Yeah.
So, because they're still learning. They're still
for sure. I mean,
place.
Especially the first couple months in a restaurant. I've been a part of 2 new restaurant openings, and it's always rough, right? Like the kitchen is just getting their legs. Everyone's learning the menu. You have to stress test them a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was a really good stress test. Also, I do appreciate that you guys took that into such consideration about touching the cards and everything. What foods you serve over there, because there's nothing worse than when somebody's like eating a bag of chips, like Doritos or something, and then they touch all their cards and everything. It's worse. It's the worst, man. So I appreciate that you guys actually took that into account. And it does sound like that would be a really big struggle, really trying to balance that with like what you're going to serve, but you want to also keep the good, the best items available on the menu to the poker room so that you can drive that business. So that's really cool. Have you ever opened a restaurant in like a casino or a similar large venue like this? And if you have, like, how does it compare to opening it up in a poker room specifically designed for poker?
No, I've actually never opened in a casino before. First time. I've been to lots of casinos because, as I said, I'm a poker player, so I go to Vegas a lot for many years now. I've been going many times, and I've got to know a lot of restaurateurs in the casinos in Vegas. So a lot of them became my friends, and I go and see them every time I was in Vegas. And I sit there, and the bartenders know me, the managers know me, the owners know me. So, I sort of talk to them a lot about it. I think I guess the question is, how's it different being in the casino card room to a casino specific? I guess one of the biggest differences is in casinos, they really don't care if they make a profit on the food. I think they probably want to, but it's not as important. I mean, they're giving the booze away for free for a start.
True.
We don't. Well, we're not legally allowed to anyway in Texas, but
right.
But I don't think we would anyway, because we have spent money building a restaurant and we need to get return on that investment.
Of course.
So I think one of the differences is probably that. Casinos are way bigger. They have more employees. I mean, they'll have a break room with 100. They don't struggle getting the floor covered as much as we might, because we're a lot smaller of an operation. And I'd probably say that would probably be the biggest difference, and that is economies of scale in terms of, as big as the lodge is as a card room relative to a casino. It's
pretty tiny.
It's pretty small. I mean, it's the card room in the casino type thing. It's like so. Whereas if you're in a casino, you've got that entire floor, you've got a bigger crew. The economies of scale make it easier to manage on the sort of staffing level.
I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, as you said, the lodge is a very large card room, but it's still a relatively small business.
Yeah, if I have 2 servers that don't show up, it really shows.
Pretty rough, yeah.
Yeah, whereas in a casino, you almost don't realize that 2 servers haven't shown up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. The scaling issue is definitely a big one for sure. So the restaurant's been soft opened for poker room service for a couple of weeks now, I think since early December. What adjustments have you made since that soft opening now that the restaurant's fully operational?
Good question. We are adjusting some of the food items. We're looking at portions, some of the recipes, some what things are working, what things are not working. I'm giving our food suppliers a few talking to where, like, for example, we had a steak fritz with sirloin, and the sirloin was too lean. So we were struggling with that. And it's not something you just change overnight, because they have to get a different cut in. It's not just like you could just do that and it's changed.
Yeah, you got stock you got to get through.
Right.
Everything.
So in fact, I have a new cut of sirloin coming in today, funny enough.
Okay.
And I tested it last week, and it was so much better.
Yeah.
So things like that, like tweaking it, figuring out the service. You've got, most servers don't play poker, so we're trying to teach them. It's a whole new thing. In fact, we're talking about doing a training video. I'm going to try and convince Doug and all those guys to sit down at the table and sort of play a fake game.
Oh, fantastic!
And I'm going to walk around the table. He'll probably say no, but we'll see. And I'm going to walk around the table, having it videoed, so it becomes this training thing that we can use in San Antonio, we can use here, we can use in Dallas or wherever we open our next rooms, to teach these people how to approach a table. Because I obviously know when they should approach a table because I play poker, but for them it's not. So when you're in a restaurant, you've got your section of 5 tables, 6 tables, whatever it is, and you're focused on those customers. In the card room, when we've got a series on, there's like 400 or 500 people in there.
Yeah.
So it's a different beast.
Yeah, it's a lot of serving challenges I've been seeing. One is that, yes, most entry-level servers probably have 0 to very little experience dealing with poker or card rooms of any kind. And so it's not like coming up to a traditional table in a restaurant. You have to come up to someone while they're playing a game, sometimes playing a game for a lot of money. And so it can be very delicate. It has to be a lot more delicate, and there's a different approach to it than you might otherwise take when you're actually serving tables in a restaurant. And on top of that, it's not very common that your players or your customers move around in between service and everything, because if somebody takes an order over on this side and then they get moved to a different tournament table, now the server has to keep up with that. And it's been probably a set of unique challenges that come with serving active players in a card room.
And it all happens. Everything happens. We were taking payment to begin with because a lot of times people will bust and leave. As you said, when it's tournaments, people are moving tables, and then the server's like, "Oh, they've gone." It's like, no, they haven't gone. Hang on a minute. And so that those lines of communication, it's an ongoing sort of development. But it's working out. The poker management team are working with us to try and smooth those things out, and hopefully we'll get it perfect pretty soon. Yeah,
no, it sounds like you guys are still in the experimentation phase. You're still learning, smoothing everything out, but you're learning quickly from what I can tell, and everything is starting to flow easier, and people are ordering plenty of the food, so it looks like it's been going pretty well since the beginning.
No, the food's been going really well. I mean, another kind of interesting one that I didn't expect is food getting cold, because a lot of times food will be delivered and it's warm, but they're in a big hand.
Yeah.
As an example, you're sitting there in an all-in moment that might take 5 minutes before that, or some like 4-way all-in bomb pot or something. And by the time it gets their food, hang on a minute, this food's cold. It's like, it wasn't.
It wasn't. Yeah, exactly.
So we're trying to deal with things like that. Could be a bit of a challenge as well.
Yeah, because there's not really a way that you can predict that, right? It's not like you can, anticipate, like maybe keep the food back a minute or two while they're in a hand. You can't do that.
It's actually impossible.
Yeah. So that is definitely something that's probably a unique challenge, and it is unfortunate because the average player is not going to understand that, right? They're like, they just see that they were in a hand, and then now they have food, now it's cold.
Yeah.
So they don't see the whole process along the way. Well, you recently mentioned that Odds has actually been one of your favorite restaurants to open, and as I understand, as you've opened, however many dozens of restaurants, that's pretty high praise, I'd say. So, given that extensive experience, what makes this project so special to you?
A number of things. I guess one of them, it's the most recent, so. But
feels good.
Yeah, it feels good. Yeah, but I think the biggest thing for this one, I've done a lot of design. This one, I literally designed and self GC'd it. Probably the dumbest thing I ever did in some ways. But
I saw you in there. You were in the
I was in my boots
and
like every single day.
Yeah.
I was literally up ladders quite a lot of the time as well, just getting my hands dirty. I grew up on building sites, so I actually know a little bit about it. But I think because of the extent of my involvement on every level, literally designing it, hiring the trades, GCing it, putting it together, doing everything, like choosing the furniture, choosing what goes on the walls, just doing everything. It just made me very proud of it, because I just looked at it and think, wow, this is actually pretty cool. And there's not anything in there that I didn't personally do, including putting some of it together. So I think that, and plus, like, as we were saying, come check it out. But I think the space looks really cool. And so I've done a couple of designs that stand out, and that's definitely there. There was a place called Wall Street in Malaysia that really stands out to me in my mind, and Odds is way up there.
Really? Yeah. Wow, that's cool, man. I mean, having your hands in every step of the way, having your own personal touch in every aspect of it, that can definitely add a lot of sentimentality to it. So, and on top of that, it came up with a great product and everything, and it seemed the construction, everything seemed relatively smooth from the few pieces that I played, like being over there on the construction side. It seemed, at least by comparison to other things that we've seen here at the lodge, it seemed like it went pretty well from start to finish. And having your hands in every piece along the way is going to make it feel a lot more special.
When you're doing a big project like that, I mean, one of the things for anyone out there thinking about opening their own restaurant or bar, one of the things that we didn't have was a space that had been a restaurant. Because when you go into a space that has been a restaurant, a lot of the mechanical and engineering is already in place. So a grease trap is already there.
Right.
A lot of that stuff is done, stuff that you can't see, stuff that's literally under the ground. And we didn't have any of that. And that did create some challenges. The grease trap is like 80 feet out behind at the back of the building. So trying to get to there, and things like that, they were a challenge. Having the city come down and make sure that they're happy with the way we're going to do it, and all of those things, and getting them to sign off. So there were definitely some challenges, and there was definitely some some things took a bit longer than I was hoping they would take. But overall, it went pretty smooth.
Yeah, that's good to hear, man. And it definitely helps to have the infrastructure already in place whenever you're opening a restaurant. And it was very much not here. That was for those that don't know, Odds got turned into, or Odds used to be the original card room.
Yeah, it was the lodge. Yeah,
and then now it is the Odds Bar and Bistro. It is the restaurant. So
I never saw it operating, but when I first walked into the space, the cash booth was there, the bathrooms were there, the poker tables were all there, and I was like, oh, so this was the lodge.
Yep.
And then first thing I did was pull it all apart.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's kind of cool to see how that has evolved. And now it's Odds Bar and Bistro. And you guys had the grand opening this past weekend, right? And as far as I understand, you had like 100 confirmed guests and everything like that. How did that go?
It went really well. It was this party was put together, or opening, I should say, was put together. We have a PR company and an in-house marketing team, and they put it together, and it was influencers and press and that sort of thing. And so, it went really well. People were really liking it. I was interviewed by a couple of different people, and they seemed to like the food. In fact, one of the writers said, I'm going to use you in a few of my different columns. Like, this place is great. Yeah, so
it's great.
It went really, really well.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear, man. Well, it sounds like it's only up and up from here for Odds Bar and Bistro. What's coming up next for you beyond this? Do you have any other plans, any other restaurants that you're working on now?
Yeah, I'm designing Odds San Antonio.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. So there's going to be another one down in San Antonio.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, we've got our space already. As most people know, we took over Rounders, which has become the lodge. We've leased a space next door to it, same location but next door. We're building a brand new lodge card room and new Odds. So I had meetings with the architects yesterday. I'm not going to self-GC this one, but
learned that lesson.
Yeah, but I'm designing. The card room is pretty much layout design is pretty much completed now. I'm now working on the restaurant, and then we're working on the finishes for the card room and then the restaurant, and we're building that and getting it open as soon as possible.
Awesome. That sounds great. I mean, it sounds like Odds is only going to be bigger and better down in San Antonio. So congratulations on all that, man. It's been a really cool talk. I appreciate you taking time to sit down with me, and good luck on all of the stuff coming up.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. I appreciate it.